This man is Danny Casolaro, a 44-year-old journalist and computer trade magazine owner who lived in America. He only came to public attention in 1991 when he was found dead in a bathtub in his hotel room. Danny was born on June 16, 1947, into a Catholic family in McLean, Virginia, the second of 6 children and the eldest son. His 2 siblings died, one immediately after birth and other on overdose of drugs. Danny had a typical upbringing, was a good student and went to Providence College in Providence, Rhode Island, until 1968. He married Terrell Pace, a former Miss Virginia, and had a son they named Trey. Unfortunately, the couple divorced 10 years later with Danny having the custody of his son. Danny's hobbies included boxing, writing poems and short stories, and raising purebred Arabian horses. He also immersed himself into journalism, looking into issues such as the Soviet naval presence in Cuba, the Castro intelligence network, and Chinese communist smuggling of opium into the U.S. He had also written and published one novel, The Ice King, with Whitmore Publishing Company. As his life went by, he eventually dropped his interest in journalism and acquired a series of computer industry trade publications, which he began selling towards the end of the 1980s. What ultimately led him to his demise was him getting back into journalism when his colleagues told him about the infamous Inslaw case. Danny Casolaro was led into Bermuda Triangle of spooks, guns, drugs and organized crime after being highly influenced by a reporter who fed him material related to Inslaw case. Before we move any further, you should have a clear understanding of what this Inslaw case was. Inslaw was a software company founded by former National Security Agency employee Bill Hamilton and his wife Nancy. The Justice Department tapped Inslaw to develop a computer program that would allow U.S. attorneys to track criminal cases from office to office. The Hamiltons delivered and created the breakthrough software, calling it the Prosecutor's Management Information System, or PROMIS, for short. But then, the Hamiltons alleged that the Justice Department went back on the contract, stole their software and plotted to drive their company into bankruptcy. Hamilton spent a decade fighting the Justice Department in court over their claims. Although the Justice Department denied all the claims, insisting that they owned the software because Hamilton had developed it while working for them. A federal bankruptcy judge ruled in 1988 that the department had indeed taken the software by trickery, fraud, and deceit, a decision upheld by a federal district court in 1988, but overturned on appeal in 1991. A theory surfaced around this case that several backdoors were inserted in the software so that whoever bought a copy of it from the Justice Department could be spied upon. The source of this theory was a man named Michael Riconosciuto, who was described as a rouge scientist, weapons designer and alleged drug manufacturer. Michael told Hamilton that he had paid $40 million to Iranian officials in 1980 to persuade them not to release the American hostages before the conclusion of the presidential election that saw Ronald Reagan elected President of the United States. This claim is now known as October Surprise. Michael also claimed that he had modified Inslaw's software at the Justice Department's behest so that it could be sold to dozens of foreign governments with a secret backdoor, which allowed outsiders to access computer systems using PROMIS. But on March 29, 1991, Michael was arrested for, and later convicted of, distributing drugs, charges that he said were a setup to keep him silenced. In the summer of 1990, Danny met Bill Hamilton, expressing his interest in pursuing the Inslaw story. Hamilton gave Casolaro a 12-page memo Michael had written detailing his allegations. The moment Danny got his hands on this memo, his life took a twisted turn. As he dug more and more into the case, he believed that it was much more than just a software piracy and bankruptcy case. He researched about government involvement and connection between all the events linked with the Inslaw case. Danny named this conspiracy and his theory the Octopus conspiracy. He planned to uncover this supposed worldwide conspiracy and all of its various tentacles in a book he wanted to call The Octopus. Soon he met a source referred to as Danger Man who connected the dots for Danny and even claimed to have information about what was really going on at Area 51. He also claimed that he has all the evidence that Danny will need to uncover everything. Soon a series of anonymous harassment and threatening calls directed at him started to appear, which only convinced him that he is getting near to the whole truth. On August 1991, Casolaro traveled from his home in Fairfax to Martinsburg, where he planned to meet an unnamed source that promised a big breakthrough in his year-long investigation of the Octopus conspiracy. Danny told several friends and family members that he had finally cracked the case. He even told one of his friends that he was going to meet the head of the Octopus in West Virginia. His longtime housekeeper and neighbor, Olga, helped him pack a black leather tote. She remembers his packing a thick sheaf of papers into a dark brown or black briefcase. This was the last time Olga saw him. Olga that night answered several threatening calls. One such call stated that Danny will be cut up and fed to sharks. After that several other calls came, but no one spoke, only some music played. Danny's last known sightings include him eating at a Pizza Hut where he told the waitress that he liked her eyes. He met Honeywell engineer William Richard Turner at the Sheraton, who gave him some documents. Witnesses also reported seeing Danny at a restaurant, whose bartender later told the police that he seemed lonely and depressed. He was also seen at Heatherfield's, the cocktail lounge at the Sheraton, with a man described by a waitress as maybe Arab or Iranian. That same night Danny met Mike Looney, who rented a room next to his room. From Mike's statements to the police, we know that Danny was waiting for the important source who was going to give him what he needed to solve the case. Danny bought a coffee at a nearby store. That was the last time anyone reported seeing him, alive for that matter. At about noon on August 10, 1991, housekeeping staff discovered Danny's naked body in the bathtub of room 517. His wrists were slashed deeply, about 3 to 4 wounds on his right wrist and 7 to 8 wrists on his left. Blood was all over the bathroom floor and walls. Under the body, paramedics found empty beer can, 2 white plastic liner, trash bags and a razor blade. There was also a half-empty wine bottle nearby. The hotel room was clean with no sign of any struggle. There was a legal pad and a pen on the desk, single page torn from the pad with a message written on it: "To those who I love the most, please forgive me for the worst possible thing I could have done. Most of all, I'm sorry to my son. I know deep down inside that God will let me in." Based on the evidence found in the hotel room, police were quick to determine that Danny simply took his own life. 3 days after his death, there were several rumors flying around, like mafia being involved somehow, or that a former CIA agent was hired to clean up after the assassination. In the toxicology analysis, several traces of drugs were found in Danny's system, which included antidepressants, acetaminophen, and alcohol, which further solidified that Danny was indeed depressed and took his own life. We cannot be sure just what exactly happened to Danny Casolaro, but there are some theories. Danny's family firmly believe that he was not depressive. He was so cheerful when he said he was going to uncover the whole conspiracy. There was no way he would just end his own life. But that wasn't the only factor that led Danny's family and friends to suspect foul play. His brother revealed that none of Danny's papers were found in his hotel room or his car, which appeared suspicious. But perhaps the most alarming piece of information was that, in the weeks before his death, Danny had told his brother that if something were to happen to him, it won't be an accident. Even Danny's close friends say that him taking his own life is highly implausible. So, can we conclude that Danny was simply silenced for knowing too much? Well, there is one rather less interesting theory suggested, according to which Danny intended for his demise to appear as something triggered by his research into the octopus in order to have others look into the mystery after his death. If he really intended that, I think it's safe to say he succeeded. That's why we are even making this video. But whatever the case may be, it's up to you, the audience, to decide. Was Danny simply just silenced by the government, or it really was him taking his own life?